Off-campus introduces us to Hannah Wells, a music major and scholarship student at Breyer University, who is essentially the queen of side hustles, including cleaning for the hockey team. She's on shift when she accidentally walks in on Garrett Graham, the star captain of the hockey team, who decides to be a total menace by giving her a full view of his assets rather than covering up, which catches Hannah so off guard she trips over herself. They cross paths again in their ethics and philosophy class, where Garrett bombs an exam while Hannah aces it. Since failing the class would get him suspended from hockey, Garrett immediately tries convincing Hannah to tutor him, but she refuses. As they go about their separate days, we learn Hannah's scholarship is in trouble because her current one is being pulled, and her only real shot at a new one is winning a music showcase competition. The problem is that Hannah has always worked in classical and cultural music, so pop is way outside her comfort zone. She doesn't have a choice, and starts working on it while nursing a long-standing crush on Justin Cole, a college rock singer. Her best friend Allie has been pushing her to just go talk to him, which Hannah keeps refusing to do. Garrett, meanwhile, lives in the shadow of his father Phil Graham, a hockey legend, and the whole reason Garrett got into the sport in the first place. Phil is a bit of an egomaniac. He shows up out of nowhere, despite Garrett ignoring his calls, to announce he's getting married to a woman he's only been dating for 6 months, which sends Garrett into a tailspin. These deep-seated daddy issues are exactly why Garrett avoids commitment and sticks strictly to casual hookups. The emotional weight of his father's visit causes Garrett to fumble during his next big game, and when he heads out to clear his head, he spots Hannah singing and dancing alone in a room nearby. Something about watching her just centers him, and he heads back in and finishes the game like a pro, but now he is curious about who she is. Since he only knows her as Mona, the name he gave her, he goes on a full Instagram deep dive to find her real name. Later, he spots her at a party his friends are throwing, which is the same party Allie has convinced Hannah to attend with a mission to finally talk to Justin. Hannah is heading toward him when someone spills a drink on her. She's still managing to have a decent conversation with Justin when Garrett shows up and throws his jacket over her shoulders, calling her babe. It throws her off, but it also weirdly works, and Justin now has a name to go with the face. Hannah is rightfully annoyed that he crashed her moment, but he explains that guys like Justin only notice women they think other high-status men value. Since Garrett is basically hockey royalty on campus, pretending to date him would suddenly make Hannah more interesting in Justin's eyes. He proposes a win-win deal where she tutors him so he can stay on the team, and in exchange, he will pay her and act as her fake boyfriend to make Justin jealous. To get the world to believe they are actually dating, they need to get on the Fifth Line, a gossip blog run by Jules, who is the sister of Garrett's teammate, Logan. The plan is to establish the relationship publicly, then break up, at which point Garrett is confident Justin will want to swoop in to mend Hannah's broken heart. Both of their schedules are packed, but they swap numbers and make it work. The first tutoring session happens late one evening at the house Garrett shares with his hockey friends. He comes downstairs without a shirt to put on a show for Jules, which flusters Hannah, but Jules isn't convinced yet. The issue, it turns out, isn't that Garrett doesn't know philosophy, because he actually does. What he can't wrap his head around is how Nietzsche and Kant contradict each other, and that's what he needs to nail before their next assignment, an oral presentation, which Hannah walks him through. In their next class, Garrett tries to be the doting boyfriend by bringing Hannah coffee, blissfully unaware that she is lactose intolerant. They start playing up the relationship, Hannah leaning into him, but Justin isn't even looking their way until Hannah accidentally drops Garrett's giant metal water bottle, causing a noisy scene that makes her want to vanish into the floor. Their real opportunity to convince Jules comes when Bo and Dean Maxwell, two of Garrett's teammates, announce their 22nd birthday party in Cape Cod, where everyone has to show up as a duo. Justin is in Bo's fraternity, so he'll be there, which means Hannah and Garrett have to sell it. Hannah's best friend Allie, a theater major with a flair for the dramatic who is in the know about the fake relationship thing, helps her prep. Garrett insists that if Hannah wants to catch a guy like Justin, she needs to start dressing for the male gaze, which basically translates to being undeniably hot. In the meantime, tutoring continues along with lessons in how to actually act like a couple. Garrett points out that every time he gets close to Hannah, she blushes, and she can't be doing that in public, but Hannah insists she doesn't. To prove a point, he steps close to her, and when she doesn't blush, he raises the stakes to kissing, which proves him right. Hannah, determined to show the blush meant nothing, immediately turns and kisses Garrett's teammate, Logan, who walked in on them before she walks out. That night, Garrett has a game, and Hannah shows up as the girlfriend she's supposed to be, even though she hates hockey. Afterward, there's the Cape Cod party, and Hannah arrives in a bunny costume looking like a snack. One thing becomes clear early on: Hannah doesn't drink at parties. When Garrett goes to find her something non-alcoholic, it's actually Logan who pieces it together. It's not that Hannah doesn't drink, it's that she doesn't drink from open cups. There's more underneath that is hinted at through many flashbacks and the panic she has whenever certain types of guys get too close. Logan suggests Garrett bring her something in a sealed can, which he does. While Garrett is hunting for drinks, Jules corners Hannah, skeptical that Graham, the king of one-night stands, could actually be a nice guy in a relationship. But Hannah defends him, talking about how Garrett can be nice when he wants to be, and how he is hardworking and dedicated in a way that most people don't see, something she learned herself when she went to tutor him at practice and ended up talking to Coach Jensen. She'd asked the coach why he didn't just speak to Garrett's professor and smooth things over, and Coach Jensen told her that Garrett specifically asked him not to. He spent his whole life in his father's shadow and wants everything he has to be something he earned himself. This earns Jules's seal of approval, especially after a well-timed peck on the cheek from Hannah. The night ends with them heading upstairs to fake a hookup while Justin watches. Once behind closed doors, Garrett collapses onto the bed, exhausted from the performance. Hannah expects him to take the floor like a gentleman, but he refuses, suggesting they both just sleep on the bed, which doesn't work for Hannah. They go back and forth until Hannah spots the bruises covering his body from practice and offers him the bed out of sympathy, but Garrett refuses to be pitied, and they both end up stubbornly sleeping on the floor, leaving the bed totally empty. As they scroll through the 5th line and see that their couple picture is finally up, they start to actually talk. Garrett opens up about the crushing pressure of being Phil Graham's son, the constant weighing, the protein shakes, and the whistle his dad would blow every time he made a mistake. He admits he doesn't even know who he is without hockey. Hannah, in turn, talks about her music, and Garrett reveals he actually loves the genuine, raw songs she posted on her Instagram. The conversation eventually circles back to the pop showcase and how she needs to win it to stay in school, but lyrics aren't coming easily to her, and Garrett suggests she try collaborating with Justin. By morning, the no sleeping on the bed rule has clearly failed, as they wake up tangled together. The plan seems to be working perfectly because, on the bus ride back, Justin finally asks to sit next to Hannah. She's thrilled, but Garrett finds himself feeling surprisingly annoyed by the very success he engineered. At the same time, another subplot starts brewing involving Hannah's best friend Allie, whose long-term relationship with Sean has become painfully stale. Her attempt to spice things up falls flat because Sean has the personality of a brick. At the party, she's dressed as J-Lo to his rigid Ben Affleck, and she eventually gives up and hits the dance floor alone. This catches the eye of Dean, the group's resident playboy, and the fact that Allie doesn't immediately fall for his usual charms only makes him more determined to win her over. Just because Justin sat next to her on the bus, Hannah is already having sex dreams about him. She's supposed to tutor Garrett later that day, but she reschedules because Justin agreed to help with her showcase song, exactly like Garrett suggested, and she's excited. Garrett seems noticeably disappointed, though whether that's because he's developing feelings or because his exam is tomorrow and he actually needs the tutoring session is hard to say. Either way, he sends her off with a piece of advice that she's a catch, and she should act like it. The songwriting session starts well enough, but it ends in a disaster of epic proportions. Justin takes her lyrics home to polish them, and when she visits his place to hear the final product, the vibes are high until he spots a playlist on her laptop. It's titled Crushing, and it's filled with songs about him. Justin pulls a classic walkout, leaving Hannah in a pit of secondary embarrassment. She frantically renames the playlist to something less psychotic fangirl, but the damage to her ego is done. She heads to Garrett's to make up the tutoring session she moved, and walks in to find him in the middle of a girl's lap. Even though they are faking it, Hannah is low-key furious, but Garrett points out that their public relationship isn't exclusive, so hooking up with others shouldn't be a problem. Despite the awkwardness, she still helps Garrett prepare for his presentation by recording videos explaining concepts he struggles with. Then it's finally the day of his oral presentation, and Garrett is spiraling. He's solid on the other philosophers, but he's shaky on Kierkegaard, and unfortunately for him, that's what the spin lands on as his topic. He has to debate on whether ghosting someone would be considered moral or immoral, according to Kierkegaard's beliefs. Thankfully, Hannah had already coached him beforehand. She told him that if he got nervous, he should focus only on convincing her instead of the entire class. Garrett follows her advice and absolutely nails the presentation, arguing that Kierkegaard would consider ghosting immoral because it harms the other person and represents a failure of authentic selfhood. The moment class ends, Garrett sweeps Hannah into his arms in celebration, and things get emotionally messy for her fast. During one of her earlier dreams about Justin, his face literally transformed into Garrett halfway through. Now Garrett is holding her like this while Justin casually waves at her across campus, and Hannah suddenly realizes her feelings are getting dangerously confusing. To fix the fangirl narrative with Justin, Garrett instructs Hannah to play hard to get when Justin finally texts to check on her. They head to a karaoke party where the mission is to relax and have fun, and Hannah brings Allie, who is very upset. Allie had told her boyfriend Sean about landing a talent agent, and Sean responded by mapping out their boring but stable future in Vermont because her chances of making it in Hollywood are slim, which completely killed Allie's vibe. Hannah, being the top-tier friend she is, hypes her up the way Allie wanted Sean to. At the party, Hannah still refuses to drink from communal cups because of the trauma she's been carrying for years, but Garrett gently reassures her that he'll protect her and watch her drink the entire night. He asks if she trusts him, and Hannah realizes that she actually does. The hilarious mission of figuring out what kind of alcohol Hannah even likes begins, and after several failed attempts, they finally discover that piña coladas are her weakness. As she gets properly drunk and sings beautifully on stage, we realize that Logan apparently has feelings for her too. The two of them actually have history. He was the one who fixed her first car, a blue Subaru, back before it finally gave out on her. They connected over their shared habit of juggling multiple side hustles because, unlike Garrett, Logan isn't operating from the same financial cushion. There's also a sponsorship deal that a company has been pushing Garrett to do with his father, which Garrett wants nothing to do with, but drunk Hannah suggests he do campaigns with his friends instead, an idea Garrett surprisingly likes. The night ends with a very drunk Hannah trying to seduce Garrett, but he proves he's a true gentleman by tucking her into bed and keeping things platonic. However, the next morning, after receiving a text from Justin asking her to come over, she brings Garrett a coffee, looks him in the eye, and tells him she doesn't want to go to Justin's until Garrett helps her have an orgasm. The first thing Garrett asks is whether she's still drunk, but Hannah makes it clear she's completely sober, and for the first time, she opens up about the trauma she has been carrying since high school. She explains that she was assaulted years ago, and even though she has done a lot of healing emotionally, intimacy with another person still makes her shut down mentally. She can enjoy intimacy by herself, but when another person is involved, her body basically disconnects from the experience. Now that Justin Cole has invited her over, Hannah knows things might become physical, and she's terrified of freezing up. She decides she wants to start somewhere that feels emotionally safer and lower pressure. Garrett. It's a lot to take in, but Garrett agrees, and they set a time for 7 p.m. Garrett has been with plenty of girls, but this feels different, and he knows it. He doesn't want to get it wrong, so he goes to Dean, who has probably the most experience in the friend group, for advice. Dean surprisingly gives him genuinely thoughtful advice. He tells Garrett the biggest thing is making Hannah feel safe. According to him, once a woman feels emotionally safe and fully comfortable, the rest tends to fall into place naturally, and that advice completely changes Garrett's approach. When Hannah arrives later that evening wearing one of Allie Hayes' sexy outfits, Garrett immediately tells her she doesn't need to perform for him and suggests she change into something comfortable instead. When Hannah begins undressing, Garrett literally turns around to give her privacy. Hannah laughs because technically he's still gonna see her eventually anyway, but Garrett explains that they agreed to sleep together, not watch her change into something comfortable. That tiny gesture becomes one of the first moments Hannah truly relaxes around another person physically. Instead of rushing into anything, Garrett asks her to put on a song, and she picks the most played one on his playlist. They dance a little, laugh a little, and then try. But Hannah still mentally disconnects from the situation because of her trauma response. Since the traditional way is failing, Garrett suggests focusing on individual satisfaction while maintaining eye contact, and it actually works for a moment. However, as they continue, Hannah begins to disconnect, because having him there in that intimate space triggers her past trauma. But Garrett manages to bring her back by gently telling her to look at him, which grounds her in the present and helps her feel safe enough to finally let go in the presence of someone else. Afterward, the mood becomes unexpectedly sweet and domestic. They sit around eating freezer food together and talking like two people who have accidentally become each other's comfort person. There's this strong feeling that both of them want to confess their feelings, but before anything can happen, messages start blowing up Garrett's phone, and Hannah abruptly decides to leave before things become too real emotionally. When she gets to her dorm, she finds Allie going through the breakup cycle from hell. After Sean failed to support her acting dreams, she dumped him, but he's so used to their toxic pattern that he's literally counting down the 36 hours until she begs for him back. Allie, currently in the angry stage, is preparing for a drunk Shakespeare performance, a chaotic show where forgotten lines equal mandatory shots for the audience. During practice, Garrett can't stop talking about Hannah, so much so that one of his friends eventually tells him he is into her. Garrett decides that tonight, at the drunk Shakespeare show, he's going to tell her how he feels. But Logan is not happy about this, and he's losing his focus on the ice. His sister Jules has to stage a brutal intervention, reminding him that unlike Garrett, he doesn't have the luxury of a safety net. If he doesn't go pro, he's headed straight back to a life of struggle, so he heads to the rink to bury his feelings in practice. The drunk Shakespeare event becomes a literal stage for everyone's messy lives. Garrett arrives ready to confess his feelings, only to find Justin and Hannah being all cozy. Because of a sudden illness in the cast, a group of volunteers is pulled on stage. Hannah, Justin, Garrett, and Kendall, a girl Garrett once callously dumped. The improvised plot is peak irony. Hannah's character loves Justin's character, but her father wants her to marry Garrett, while Kendall is trying to steal Garrett away. Kendall is kind of bitchy to Hannah on stage. Though they already met at Garrett's first game, where Kendall and her friends were perfectly pleasant to Hannah. But now that Kendall knows Garrett likes her, she becomes openly hostile. When Kendall and Garrett finally get a private moment backstage, Garrett sincerely apologizes for how badly he handled their past relationship. Now that he knows what it feels like wanting somebody who may not want you back, he finally understands how much he hurt her. When a love potion plot point forces the guys to dance for Kendall's affection, Garrett puts on a show that makes Hannah realize she has fallen for him. The contrast between the two men becomes undeniable when Hannah talks to Justin about a song playing, which Justin claims he likes. She realizes he has the emotional depth of a teaspoon. He likes songs for how they sound, not how they feel. Even the song they wrote together feels hollow to her advisor. But for Garrett, it's different. Earlier, when Hannah asked him about the song she played during their intimate night together, Garrett explained that his mother used to play it constantly, and that the song makes him feel brave and understood. He attaches meaning and emotion to things in a way Justin simply doesn't. Thinking he's lost his chance, Garrett heads to the ice to take his loss in peace, after Hannah tells him their contract is officially over now that Justin wants to date her. He's ready to go back to his hockey-only life plan, but the quiet of the rink is interrupted by a voice over the speakers. It's Hannah, finally singing with the raw, gut-wrenching emotion she has been missing. He follows the sound to the announcer's booth, where they finally stop pretending and start their real ending. After finally admitting their feelings, Hannah and Garrett officially become a couple, and they spend the stretch leading up to Thanksgiving very happily occupied, making up for lost time. When the holiday rolls around, Hannah's mom calls to check in and sends her love to Garrett, but Hannah never goes home for Thanksgiving because of the trauma surrounding her assault. The perpetrator was the mayor's son and a fellow hockey player, and after his team testified in his favor, the entire town turned against her. She usually spends the holiday at Allie's family home, but this year Garrett asks her to join him at his father's place instead. Phil told Garrett he has changed and his fiancée Cindy wants to meet him. Garrett is skeptical but goes anyway, bringing Hannah along for support. Things seem fine at first until they hold hands for grace during dinner. Garrett spots a familiar bruise on Cindy's arm and immediately sees through the "I'm clumsy" excuse. Having watched Phil's abuse destroy his late mother, Garrett realizes his father is the same monster he's always been. He tries to warn Cindy to run, but she insists it's, quote, complicated, leaving Garrett spiraling with the fear that he is destined to become just like his father. Hannah steps up as his rock, taking him to her coffee shop for a late-night sandwich and reminding him that his instinct to protect people makes him nothing like Phil. Back at the commune, Tuck, one of Garrett's friends, has decided to take Friendsgiving way too seriously this year because the last one they did was a disaster. Determined to recreate his mom's home-cooked feast from scratch, he turns the kitchen into a military zone, policing his teammates on everything from vegetable prep to seasoning. Jules even rounds up extra hands to help, but Tuck's perfectionism becomes his downfall. In a classic kitchen nightmare, he forgets to pat-dry the turkey before tossing it into the deep fryer, and the moisture causes a massive flare-up that transforms the meal into a brick of charcoal. After hours of policing and preparation, the group ends up taking the burnt bird out to the ice rink to use it as a puck, turning a cooking tragedy into a night of bonding and laughter. While the guys are playing turkey hockey, Logan and Jules have a much more bittersweet mission. Jules refuses to let their family tradition die and insists they visit their mother in rehab. Logan is initially hesitant because he's tired of being let down by her endless cycle of addiction and broken promises to get clean. But he ultimately cannot let his sister go alone. They head to the facility to drop off their traditional Thanksgiving meal of tacos and marshmallows before heading back to join the rest of the group on the rink, finding comfort in the chosen family they have built at Briar. The entire day, though, Allie has been acting weird on the phone, claiming she was too busy with family stuff to talk. At first, I honestly thought she had gone back to Sean, but during the Thanksgiving group video call, we learned she's actually hooking up with Dean. And it all started on karaoke night when a drunk Allie was sleeping in the living room of Garrett's house after a bathroom rant about her boring boyfriend, Sean, which practically everyone at the party heard, including Dean. When Dean came home that night with a group of girls and accidentally fell on her, the mood was ruined for his dates, but a spark was lit for Allie. Dean, sensing she was ready to choose her dreams over her stagnant relationship, saved his number in her phone and told her to call him when she finally ended things with Sean. By the time drunk Shakespeare rolled around, Allie's resolve had crumbled, and she called Dean instead of Sean. But their one-time hookup quickly turned into a habit. When she told Hannah she was taking a bus home for Thanksgiving, she conveniently forgot to mention that Dean and Bo Maxwell were the ones driving her. Somehow, the funniest part of the road trip was that Allie ended up bonding more with Bo than Dean, because they were both theater nerds. Bo's older sister is basically Hollywood royalty, so he and Allie spent the whole drive annoying Dean. And when Allie kept making excuses about why she couldn't talk to Hannah during Thanksgiving,
it was because Dean had invited her to his house, where she started seeing the real version of him. Dean is ridiculously rich, but his life honestly feels kind of empty. He started doing his usual charm the girl routine by giving her the grand tour, ending with the piano performance that apparently melted every woman alive. But Ali saw right through it and challenged him to just be himself. They ended up playing chess and genuinely connecting, but the guilt of secretly dating Garrett's friend crept in during the Thanksgiving group video call, and she broke things off even as Dean realized he was actually falling for her. Back at school, Hannah is spiraling over the showcase, because even though Justin Cole helped polish the song, the final version lacks emotional depth. She's frustrated because the competition is only 2 weeks away. Garrett tells her she can do it, and somewhere in that conversation he tells her he loves her, and she says it back. The hockey team also runs a yearly fundraiser for the Hurricanes, a scholarship program for kids who cannot afford hockey. Logan actually came up through that same program and still goes back to train the younger players. Garrett is supposed to reach out to his father about a donation, which he does yearly, but after their Thanksgiving dinner, he is not in a place to do that. Hannah suggests holding the fundraiser at Malone's instead, the coffee shop she works, partly to help, and partly because she can tell Garrett isn't ready to talk to his friends about what's going on with Phil. The fundraiser ends up being a success, but with a little tension, because Logan still went behind Garrett's back to get Phil's donation. Justin and his band perform and take song requests from the crowd, which keeps the energy high. While Dean and Ali spend most of the night using the fundraiser as a vehicle for their drama by trading song requests, they end up in a photo booth where Ali breaks her "this is the last time" rule for the 100th time. But she crushes Dean's heart by insisting their connection is strictly physical. They end up back at the dorm thinking Hannah would be at Garrett's. But when Hannah texts that she wants a girls' night, Ali scrambles to get Dean out. He forgets his jacket, and as she heads to the door to return it, she opens it to find Sean standing there. He is devastated that 36 hours after their breakup, she has already moved on. While everyone else was partying, Garrett spent the night drilling the junior players on game strategy against their rivals, St. Anthony's, who are on a terrifying winning streak and threatening Briar's title. Hannah tells him they've got this, promising she'll be there cheering him on with some ridiculous cardboard sign. But that plan completely falls apart when she discovers that St. Anthony's new starting center is Aaron Delaney, the same guy who assaulted her in high school, and this information sends her straight into a panic attack. It doesn't help matters that Cindy and Garrett's father decide to attend the game, which completely throws Garrett off emotionally. Instead of trusting his teammates, he starts playing like he's a one-man army on the ice, and Aaron Delaney immediately takes advantage of that, constantly targeting and shutting him down whenever he gets close to scoring. Logan gets increasingly frustrated watching Garrett spiral, because the guy is acting like nobody else on the team exists. Things are already weird between them after Logan secretly reached out to Phil Graham for fundraising donations behind Garrett's back, so when Logan tries telling him to get his head back in the game, Garrett completely blows up at him. Garrett keeps trying to call and text Hannah because she's basically the only thing that calms him down, but Hannah is spiraling herself after learning Delaney now plays for the St. Anthony's hockey team. She tries following her therapist's old advice about writing through her emotions, but nothing comes out. Eventually, she follows the sound of music to her advisor, who is playing a piece he once wrote for his son. Before he even explains the meaning behind it, Hannah can already feel the emotion in the song, and that is when she finally understands what he meant when he said Justin's version of her showcase song lacked depth. Hannah admits that being vulnerable terrifies her, because every time she has ever opened herself up emotionally, life has punished her for it, but he gently tells her that vulnerability itself isn't the problem. The important thing is focusing on the people who truly matter, the ones who smile when they see her and stay in her corner. This realization sends Hannah running to the rink, where she finds Garrett in a timeout. The second he sees her, relief washes over him, because he genuinely thought something terrible had happened. Hannah reassures him that she is okay, and simply tells him not to let his father win. That alone is enough to recenter him, and Garrett goes back onto the ice, and immediately starts dominating the game again, right until Delaney decides to run his mouth. After spotting Hannah kissing Garrett earlier, Delaney sneers that he is not just going to beat Garrett in hockey, but he is going to do it because of lying slut Hannah, and Garrett completely snaps. Honestly, it would have been smarter if he had just destroyed Delaney within the game and blamed it on aggressive hockey, but Garrett fully abandons logic. He drops everything and attacks Delaney outright, beating him so badly players have to physically drag him away before he seriously injures the guy. The fallout is devastating. Garrett is suspended for 4 games, but his father's twisted pride, celebrating the return of the old violent hockey vibe, makes Garrett feel physically sick. Terrified that he is morphing into his abusive father, Garrett breaks up with Hannah, believing he will eventually become a monster in her eyes. Hannah spends the rest of the day dismantling herself. Ever since the assault, she has blamed herself for every terrible thing that happened afterward, like her parents losing their jobs, the town turning against them, the financial strain from lawyers and therapy, and now Garrett potentially losing his hockey future too. She calls her mom in tears, convinced she ruins everyone she loves, but her mother immediately shuts that down, reminding Hannah that she didn't do anything wrong. She was a teenage girl who got roofied and assaulted, so the blame belongs entirely to the person who hurt her, not to her. Her parents also reassure her that they will figure out the scholarship situation together, because she is still their daughter before anything else. While Hannah's relationship is falling apart, Allie is spiraling over her ex Sean's parting words that she is incapable of being single. So when Beau asks her to help his older sister Joanna Maxwell tape an audition, Allie spills everything about Dean, and Joanna quickly points out that whatever Allie calls it, months of exclusivity, emotional attachment, and constant hookups basically is a relationship. Determined to break the cycle, Joanna takes Allie to a bar where Allie flirts with a stranger using a fake ID. Joanna suggests Allie sleep with him to prove she can be carefree and unattached, but even when Allie tries, she can't fully go through with it. The stranger eventually suggests they just kiss instead, mostly because Joanna is watching the entire thing like it is an experiment she desperately needs to pass. Afterward, convinced she now needs to commit to being casual, Allie tells Dean they should start sleeping with other people if they are going to continue whatever this is. Dean agrees outwardly, but internally the guy is already down horrendous for her. Garrett's problems only get worse when the NCAA uncovers an old social media video of Garrett playing a training match with a professional team while he was still technically an amateur. Because it counts as a professional practice, Garrett is declared an ineligible player from the moment he stepped foot at Briar, so every single game the team played with him gets wiped from the record books, and their entire season basically resets to zero overnight. Worse, most of their players are injured, and without Garrett, they desperately need new players. Logan suggests a talented kid from tryouts named Hunter Davenport, but Dean fiercely objects for a mysterious reason nobody fully understands yet. Around the same time, Allie finally follows through on her homework of hooking up with someone else after randomly running into the same guy from the bar again. When she later tells Dean about it, she expects him to shrug it off, since that was literally his agreement too. But the problem is, Dean hasn't been able to go through with sleeping with anybody else because he is completely fixated on Allie now. Dean is still trying to process this when the bar guy walks right into Malone's coffee shop. It turns out his name is Hunter Davenport, the very recruit Dean hates, and Dean immediately levels him with a punch. Whatever history exists between them, it involves Dean's sister Summer. In the aftermath of the breakup, Hannah is trying to work through her heartbreak while dealing with weird vibes from customers at Malone's. Sean drops by for fries and reveals that the Fifth Line gossip blog posted an alert stating Hannah is strictly off-limits. Hannah confronts Garrett in the locker room, but he admits he didn't order the post, explaining that his protective teammates did it because they knew he'd lose his mind if anyone else breathed near her. Even while broken up, the two of them keep silently orbiting each other online. Garrett ends up liking an old Instagram video of Hannah performing a deeply personal song she wrote in high school, and the gesture means a lot to her. Not long after, Hannah finally tells Allie the truth, which is that the friend she claimed got assaulted years ago was actually her. But Allie calmly reveals she already knew and was simply waiting until Hannah was ready to say it herself. Hannah worries that being that girl changes how people see her, but Allie tells her every version of Hannah is still Hannah. The assault is part of her story, but it does not erase the funny, talented, stubborn girl she loves as a best friend. That support gives Hannah the courage to fully commit to the music showcase and finally write something real. While working on her performance, she learns Garrett and Logan still aren't speaking, so she tracks Garrett down at the rink. Even though they're broken up, she reminds him they can still talk honestly. Garrett confesses that his coach asked whether he truly loves hockey or whether he's only been playing for the wrong reasons all his life, and Hannah points out that he has a perfect excuse to quit during his suspension, yet here he is, still training on the ice. He doesn't play for his dad, he plays for his squad. Garrett checks the footage of the Delaney fight on the Fifth Line and realizes that when he totally blacked out in a fury, it was Logan who dragged him off and saved him from doing something life-altering. Garrett finally goes to Logan and opens up about the horrific abuse he suffered from his father, explaining how easy it was to hide the bruises under hockey gear. Logan consoles his best friend, the rift is healed, and the boys are back in sync. After Briar wins their next massive game, Hannah calls Allie to announce she is officially taking the stage at the showcase. Allie immediately calls Dean, orchestrating a plan to get Garrett to the auditorium. When Garrett hesitates, fearing he should let Hannah move on, Logan steps in as the ultimate wingman, reminding him that he is nothing like his father and that they belong together. The squad rushes to the showcase just in time to watch Hannah deliver a breathtaking, emotionally raw performance that leaves the crowd stunned. Afterward, Garrett finds her, delivers a heartfelt apology for pushing her away, and begs for a real chance. They share a beautiful, curse-breaking kiss to solidify their relationship. Though Hannah doesn't take home the first-place trophy for the showcase, her immense talent catches the eye of the judges, earning her a prestigious paid internship that will help secure her financial future at Briar. Season 1 wraps up with the Ice King and the music major finally on the same page, leaving the locker room doors wide open for Allie and Dean's drama to take center stage in Season 2.